Hello everyone, welcome to another video of comprehensive biology learning. In today's video, we will talk about electrolytic refining of copper. So if we start with the word meaning, the word electrolytic means by the usage of electricity, breakdown of a compound so that purification can be done to obtain pure copper from the extracted copper. Now extracted copper हमारे पास कहाँ से आ रहा है? Let's start from the very beginning. When from the earth, when we mine the copper, when we extract it doesn't come in its original form. It comes as a copper ore, which is copper plus sulfur, copper sulfide. When we heat it in the presence of oxygen, copper oxide is formed. When we heat it further, copper is obtained, but this copper is not pure. It still has some impurities. So to obtain refined copper, we have to perform the process of electrolytic refining. इसका मतलब जो कॉपर हमने एक्सट्रैक्ट कर लिया है उसके अंदर से इम्प्योरिटीज़ को हटाने के लिए इलेक्ट्रोलाइटिक रिफाइनिंग की ज़रूरत पड़ती है. Here we need to remember that heating an ore in the presence of oxygen is called as roasting. Please remember. But if we heat it without oxygen, then it is called as calcination. Now, this electrolytic refining requires a particular setup. Okay, there are three conditions that are required to make the setup of electrolytic refining. We need to make an electrolytic cell which consists of a container, a battery, of course with a negative and a positive side, and two electrodes dipped inside the electrolyte. Now what are the three conditions? The cathode needs to be made up of pure copper. Cathode means the electrode which is connected to the negative terminal. So the electrode which is connected to the negative terminal should always be made up of pure copper. Anode should be made up of impure copper. The anode is an electrode which is connected to the positive terminal of the battery. Now this is made up of impure copper. ये impure copper हमारे पास कहाँ से आ रहा है? इस स्टेज से. मतलब कॉपर ऑक्साइड को हीट करने के बाद जो कॉपर बना, दैट इज इम्प्योर कॉपर. वी आर प्लेसिंग इट हियर एज एन इलेक्ट्रोड. इलेक्ट्रोलाइट अ सॉल्ट सोल्यूशन ऑफ कॉपर. अब इस कंटेनर में हम इलेक्ट्रोलाइट कौन सा फिल करेंगे? इस कंटेनर में हम एक ऐसे सॉल्ट का सॉल्यूशन लेंगे जिसके अंदर कॉपर प्रेजेंट हो. सो द बेस्ट इलेक्ट्रोलाइट इज कॉपर सल्फेट. Now let us understand what happens in the electrolytic refining step by step. As we have understood the three conditions, let us understand what happens in the beaker. Now the beaker is ready, or the container is ready. We have filled it with the electrolyte. We have the cathode and anode ready, connected with the battery. Now in the beaker, copper sulfate breaks down into copper ions and sulfate ions. Copper ions being positively charged go to the cathode, and sulfate ions being negatively charged go to the anode. Copper sulfate breaks into Cu2 plus SO4 2 minus. Now as opposite charges attract each other, Cu2 plus will go to the negatively charged terminal and SO4 2 negative will go to the positively charged terminal. Now as the ions are formed in the beaker, let's see what happens at the cathode. Cathode is the negatively charged terminal. Okay, as copper ions are positively charged, they will go to the cathode and there they will gain 2 electrons to form neutral copper atoms. मतलब ये Cu2 plus ions जो हैं फ्लो करते हुए कैथोड के पास जाएंगे, और क्योंकि कैथोड के पास नेगेटिव चार्ज है, वहाँ से वो इलेक्ट्रॉन्स बोरो करके न्यूट्रल कॉपर एटम्स बनाएंगे जो कि कैथोड के ऊपर डिपॉजिट हो जाएगा. ठीक है, ये जो डॉट्स दिख रहे हैं ये कॉपर डॉट्स हैं जो कि डिपॉजिट हो गए. सो कॉपर एटम्स नाउ डिपॉजिट ऑन द कैथोड. Now let's see what happens at anode. SO4 2 negative remain below the anode. Sulfate ions are negatively charged. They should technically go to the anode and stick there, but because it's a polyatomic ion, it doesn't stick. Rather, it remains below the anode and into the solution. कॉपर आयंस Cu2 प्लस लीव एनोड एंड गो इनटू द सॉल्यूशन. अब अगर यहाँ से कॉपर आयंस, सॉल्यूशन से कॉपर आयंस निकल के कैथोड पे स्टिक हो जा रहे हैं, इसका मतलब इलेक्ट्रोलाइट में तो कॉपर आयंस की कमी हो जाएगी. फिर वो फुलफिल कहाँ से होगी? एनोड से. जब यहाँ पर इन द इलेक्ट्रोलाइट कॉपर आयंस कम पड़ जाते हैं तो एनोड से कॉपर आयंस निकल के सॉल्यूशन में आते हैं और सॉल्यूशन से फिर वो कैथोड पे डिपॉजिट हो जाते हैं. इसका मतलब डिपॉजिशन ऑफ कॉपर अकर्स फ्रॉम टू सोर्सेज. once from the original ions formed by CuSO4, and second time the ions which leave anode and enter the solution, they also leave the solution and start getting deposited over the cathode. Then impurities left settle below the anode forming the anode mud. अब अगर यहाँ से कॉपर आयंस निकल के कैथोड पे जमा हो जा रहे हैं तो इम्प्योरिटीज़ कहाँ जाएंगी? वो तो नहीं जा सकती कैथोड के पास. सो द इम्प्योरिटीज़ फॉल डाउन. They combine with the sulfate ions and they form the waste material which is called as anode mud. It is called as anode mud because the waste material is collected below the anode. Pure copper gets deposited on the cathode in this way. So in this entire process, copper leaves the solution, gets deposited on the cathode, impurities settle down. It means from the impure copper you get the pure copper. There is one thing which you need to do to increase the speed of this entire process. You need to add an acid. That is why we said that copper sulfate solution must be acidified. We add H2SO4 into the solution so as to increase the conductivity. Any acid or a base if added into the beaker will provide more free ions, और जितने ज़्यादा free ions होंगे उतना ही fast वो process होगा. So I hope the concept is clear to you. If you feel that there is any doubt, please do let me know in the comment section. Thank you.